in this lesson, we'll set up our main title text using motext. Okay, so let's go ahead and add some more text, and this is the title that we want to come on towards the end. And so let's go ahead and add some motext. All right, and I'm going to go ahead and bring it forward, and I want this text to kind of fly right in front of the camera. So I'm going to go ahead and sort of bring it up really close to the camera. And let me actually go ahead and turn off our background letters. So I'll sort of bring it up and over, kind of right up to the camera here. And you can decide what you want your text to actually say. I'm going to go ahead and just make Cinema 4D. And you can see that there. Let's go ahead and modify this a little bit. So I can go ahead and increase the spacing a bit. All right. And let's go ahead and move it over a little. It's a little bit too big, so let me go ahead and decrease the height a bit so it fits on our screen. And as we take it down, we may want to decrease the spacing a little so that we can make it a little bit bigger. Get kind of a good compromise there between the spacing and the height. So just go ahead and get this increased here, maybe 120 or so. I can stop hitting the 1 multiple times here. There we go, 120. Okay, so let's go ahead and kind of bring this in. I'm going to just rotate it a little bit. I also want to back the camera up a little bit, I think. So if we go ahead and turn this on, I want to see a little bit more of this. I'm going to actually back the camera out just a little and also bring it down a little. So just reframing things now that I've got them added in. Okay, so with the camera selected, I can go ahead and rekey everything. Now you'll notice I'm not on this frame, the first frame, so I'm going to go ahead and delete that first frame. Okay, let's go back and get the motext, and now we need to bring it forward a little bit. If you want to do this from the top view, you'll be able to do it maybe a little bit better. You can kind of see where your camera is. And so we can sort of bring it forward here. We want to make sure that it's in front of our stream of letters. Okay, so something like that. Just make sure it's far enough in front. Okay, so we may need to scale those down or take the value down here for the height. So just kind of tweaking this until it looks like what you want. Take it down a little bit more. And just get it in position. So this is sort of the final position that we want it to be in. Okay, so let's say that's sort of our final position. So now what we can do is add a plane effector to make this transition on, and we don't have to add any cloners or anything like that. We can actually use the motext itself. So we want it to affect the individual letters. So under the letters tab, I'm going to add a plane effector. Let's go ahead and add that effector. Now you can see the text just moved up. The reason for that is that the parameter in the plane effector is set to 100. So let me go ahead and turn that off. And I want to set it to affect, instead of the position right now, well actually we do want it to affect the position. We also want it to affect the rotation and the scale, but I am going to zero out that value. Okay, so we want our plane effector to have a fall off so that we can have the words appear here and then also transition back into the stream. Okay, wherever that plane effector interacts with these letters, it's going to apply whatever parameters we have in here. And so let's go ahead and make this a linear fall off. Okay, and so our plane effector, we want to go ahead and bring up to our letters. So we can go into the top view if we want to. Let's go ahead and bring this over. And I want to also change the orientation to a +X orientation. And now you can see here that this plane effector is right along these letters. So let's take a look at what that looks like if we add some sort of a parameter in here. So let's add a value in the Z. Okay, let's add maybe 10 centimeters. Okay, so you can kind of see that in here. And here's our plane effector, our fall off. So as the letters move inside of this effector, they're going to move that amount. So you can see these have been through this effector and they've been moved this amount. Okay, these have not yet entered the effector, so they haven't been moved yet. Okay, as I move them back, you can see you can take them back. So the idea is, we want them to end up here at the end, okay? But over here, we want them to be back in this sort of stream. And so what we can do is actually add values in our plane effector that will make them appear as if they're coming from that stream. So let's get to a point where we've got letters behind the text, okay? And we want the text to start to come on here, but we'll animate it in a second. Let's just add the values. So we want them to go back along the Z. So I'm going to increase that until they're back in that sort of position. It's okay if they intersect. We also can change or modify the scaling. And let's actually make them a bit smaller. Okay, so they better fit in here. We can also change the rotation. So we can sort of rotate these a little bit. Okay. That gets us partway there, but I want to add a little bit of randomness to that. And so if we take our motext under letters, let's add a random effector as well. Now for the random effector, I don't really want to randomize them too much, but I do want to make it look like they're a little bit more inside and integrated with the rest of this text. And so we'll turn on a rotation. You can kind of rotate them around in different axes, so they're a little bit harder to sort of recognize here. And our plane effector, I'm going to move them back in a little bit more. Okay. I also want to take the motext itself and turn on fillet caps. I want them to look kind of the same as the other ones. So I'm going to go ahead and take this down a little bit. Maybe add a couple of steps. Okay. So I want them to look similar to the rest of the text, and they're going to have the same material and everything, so we can deal with that. And for the plane effector, let's take that scale down a little bit more. Okay, so at this point, we want to actually go ahead and animate our plane effector. So let's go back and so that we can see the top view and the perspective view. So we want to animate the plane effector to transition the letters from this point to our final point. So what we can do is decide where we want that to happen. So I think as the letters come by, we want it to happen. So right here, the plane effector should be off the side here. And let's actually invert that so I can move it from the other side. So I just hit invert, so now I can move it along the same direction as this text is flowing. Okay, so right here we'll go ahead And with the plane effector selected, you can see that the movement is in the X. So I'm going to go ahead and key the X position here. And then as the text flies by, we'll give it a little bit more space, but I want it to come and transition those letters up to the front. So we'll key that. Okay. Now the randomization, we want to slowly fade so that we get our final look. So our random effector needs to be keyed as well, the parameters. And so let's go ahead and say we'll start it kind of right about here, and we'll key all of these bits. And then let's have it slowly settle, okay, to where it almost takes all the way to the end to kind of settle. So we'll take this position down as well as the rotation until we get our final look. And we'll go ahead and key that. So that makes sense. It's randomized here. The plane effector goes through and moves the letters forward. And at this point, the randomization starts to turn off or become less. And in time, the letters turn and move so that they're straight up. Okay, so they've sort of come off of this bit here. Now, one thing we do need to change is the fact that these are sitting here the whole time. And so what I want to do is turn off the visibility until they start to come on. And it's going to happen pretty fast, so I think I can go ahead and take this motext under the basic here, and it can come over here. And let's say that at this point, they're off. So let's go ahead and say off on visible in editor and visible in renderer. We'll key that. And then here, oh, go back a little ways. Again, happening pretty fast. We'll say frame 51. We'll turn that back on so that they can start to transition on. Okay? So let's take a look at what we've done here, and let's do a preview of this and just see what it looks like. So go ahead and make preview, and then we'll go ahead and do a hardware preview from here. So here's our preview, preview 2. Let's take a look at what it looks like. So the text is coming out. As it comes across, it shoots out, splashes onto the front screen. It happens pretty fast. You can play around with how you want that to actually transition on. Okay, but hopefully you just get the idea of what we did here. So we used the plane effector with a fall off to first we created our text and then used that plane effector to transition it back into this stream. Okay, and then we used the randomize or random effector to add a little bit of random rotation and position, which we slowly animated off towards the end, so it ends up being the text that we wanted at the end. Okay, so now that we've got that done, the next thing that we want to do is to start setting up some lighting and a backdrop and things like that. So we'll go ahead and start that in the next lesson.